History will come to life this weekend. It's the 150th anniversary of the Battle of Mobile Bay. There are a lot of activities and reenactments happening at Fort Morgan and Gulf Shores and Fort Gaines on Dauphin Island. And Joe is at Fort Gaines this morning. What's going on there, Joe?
Outside of the bug flying in front of my face, a lot is going on out here. Let's take a look around over here. We can see some of the reenactors and everybody is going to participate in all these weekend festivities, starting to get ready, set up shop here at Fort Gaines, where it is going to be a huge weekend. 1 o'clock tomorrow, a big naval battle kicks off, a reenactment and those type of activities, music, food, blacksmithing, baking, all that kind of good stuff is going to be going on all weekend long. So we definitely want you to come on out to Dauphin Island, come to Fort Gaines and experience everything for yourself. We got a chance to experience quite a bit, and we're going to have a lot for you this morning. Toward the end of Studio 10, we are going to fire one of the cannons on top of the fort, which I'm told has not been fired for years. So that is a Studio 10 exclusive. We're extremely excited about that. Now take a look at this. You want some history? How about this? Let's take a walk inside this tunnel. We're going to be talking about the battle itself here right now, and if you take a look at the ceiling, you can see that the walls are painted in white. Now it's faded quite a bit over the years, but this entire thing used to be painted bright white. The reason, they didn't have the lights that we have nowadays, so when people were running back and forth, getting supplies for the battle, all that kind of good stuff, they would be holding candles, and the white would make this place so much brighter. And when we're speaking about the Battle of Mobile Bay, the 150th anniversary, we wanted to give you a little bit of insight into that. So we met up with Ralph, the blacksmith here at Fort Gaines, and he gave us the tour. Take a listen.
We're standing by one of the 5 32-pound Seacoast guns that played an integral part in the Battle of Mobile Bay. These cannons sitting here would fire roughly about 2 miles. Out to our west would have been where General Granger on August 3rd lands 2,000 infantry soldiers and starts to attack Fort Gaines from the land face side. To our east is where Fort Morgan is, and on August the 5th is where Admiral Farragut and his warships start to steam into Mobile Bay. Now during the Battle of August 5th, this fort would have been mostly in an infantry battle. Its cannons really can't quite reach to the other side to be effective against the Navy. But on the infantry side of it, these cannons and cannons as well that lined our walls would have been defending the fort from the western side from these Union soldiers. They had advanced by August 5th to within 1,200 yards of the fort. We're starting to get pretty close to the walls, so much so that it said that where they set up their cannons, the sand dunes were so tall that they could fire at downward angles inside this fort. Down below, what's going on down there, there's men running back and forth to the different artillery positions, to the different gun ports for the riflemen, bringing ammunition back and forth. There was 2 bomb proofs inside of the fort that they would have been running in and out of. It would have been a hectic scene. Once Admiral Farragut gets into the bay, he has one of his large ironclads, the Chickasaw, park itself about 800 yards from the fort and start to lob 200-pound shells inside of this fort. One of those shells is said to have gone through the roof of one of the bomb proofs and blew up and killed several soldiers. The infantrymen here had lost a willing to fight, that they felt like that the bomb proofs that were constructed to protect them could no longer protect them. Of the 818 infantry and artillery soldiers that were stationed here, there was 13 soldiers killed and 31 wounded. There was more Union soldiers than there was Confederates. One of the biggest advantages is there's nobody left in Mobile to send down here to help. Once you have taken the bay and you've cut off its land supply to Mobile, It's just a matter of time before a fort like this has to give up. Here, the men didn't see the need to stick out the full amount of time that they had as far as food stores and ammunition, which would have been about 30 days. So on August 9th, had been demoralized to the point to where the fort is surrendered to the Union side.
The history out here is just incredible. So that cannon that Ralph was talking about is just a little bit behind me here, which means this wall over to this side is where the Union soldiers started to bring that attack. It's hard not to visualize what it was like when you're out here at Fort Gaines, and you don't have to visualize it. You can come see it and see the live reenactments that are going on this weekend. It's going to be fantastic. Now, we mentioned later on Studio 10, we've got the cannon blast for you. Also, we're going to learn a little bit about the bakery. How did they feed all these soldiers who were here? We're going to take you inside the bakery to give you a sneak peek at that. So a lot to talk about here on Fort Gaines, and also we'll have Steve at Fort Morgan, the 150th anniversary of the Battle of Mobile Bay. We've got it covered for you here on Studio 10. Chastity.
Kind of jealous Joe gets to shoot that cannon coming up. Man, I'd love to be out there, but that's coming up. You'll see that, of course, live here on Studio 10. Fox.
Welcome back to historic Fort Gaines, where we are commemorating the 150th anniversary of the Battle of Mobile Bay. I'm inside the bakery currently, and if you watched our earlier story, there was a lot more that went into the battle than just the battle. It was also a war of attrition and supplies. How long would they last? How much food did they have? So something like the bakery was extremely important. We have Mark, the baker here at Fort Gaines, and also a baker in real life, coincidentally, who's going to tell us a little bit more about this bakery here. Mark?
Morning, sir. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Now, this is really interesting. You were showing us this before. How's the system work here?
These here, the ovens here that would provide the bread and stuff for the meals for the soldiers that was stationed here. This oven right here is about 12 foot in diameter. I got this piece of bar right here to show people back at home how far this oven would have went back. Now this bar right here is actually 10 foot, so but imagine how far you would have to come out with a bread paddle just to put the bread in here. Now, what they would do is actually put some wood in here, use wood as fuel, build a fire in there, and shut these doors. Now, we'd have interior doors here, interior and exterior doors, and build a fire in there, shut these doors right here, get the bricks good and hot, and later on, open up the doors and rake the coals to the sides, stick the bread dough in there, and about maybe 2 hours you got a loaf of bread.
So 2 hours for a loaf of bread, and when you're talking about feeding hundreds and hundreds of soldiers, this thing would be going nonstop.
24 hours.
All right, so let's take a walk over here real quick, and as you can see here, this is kind of the pantry. We just wanted to show you this area. They set up the supplies, Mark, over here, you were telling me, and then back in here kind of stored everything.
Okay, yes sir. This here room right here would have been a preparation room to preparate the bread and stuff right here. This room right here was the pantry area. This is where they would have stored the food and stuff. And of course the foods back then would have came in wooden crates and barrels and stuff like that.
So you needed a big storage area, which they have here. So an integral part that you don't really think about when it comes to the Battle of Mobile Bay or what it's like with life on the fort, the bakery. So important. Hey guys, the Battle of Mobile Bay wasn't just Fort Gaines, it was Fort Morgan as well. That's where we find our own Steve Alexander.
And we are standing in front of Fort Morgan itself. This is where the Confederate troops, the people who are reenacting as Confederate troops, and you see right behind me as they are practicing maneuvers, they have stayed here in the fort overnight. They actually bunked up in some of the little areas there. Some of them brought mats. Some of them have brought some food and everything like that. And of course, they will be preparing to defend the fort here once the battle does start this weekend. And you see a lot of people. We talked to one man from Jasper, Alabama. There are a lot of people coming. If you want to come, sir, we're going to get another man crossing in, getting ready to come in. It's amazing. They were talking about 400 reenactors, I think, here at some point, and there may be more than that. The Confederate soldiers are staying here at the fort itself, marching in unison. Very good. The Union soldiers are staying behind the siege lines, which are back around that way. So you really get a flavor of history by coming here, and it has been really interesting to see everybody dressed up and talk to some of the people from around the country. Joe?
Yeah. Back outside now at Fort Gaines. Thank you for that report, Steve Alexander. When we come back to Fort Gaines, we are going to be working on that huge cannon blast, which hasn't been done in a long, long time. So excited for that. You'll see it on Studio 10. We'll be back in a bit.
I'm actually going to toss it over to Joe because we've been telling you about the 150th anniversary of the Battle of Mobile Bay all morning long. And Joe is at Fort Gaines on Dauphin Island. Joe, everybody getting ready, I'm sure.
Yes, we are getting ready for the big cannon blast we've been telling you about all morning long. This is Bruce. Bruce, tell me about you and your men here.
We portray Confederate Marine Corps, and there was 40 Confederate Marines stationed here, and they did serve on the cannons part of the time. The 2nd Alabama Artillery primarily operated the larger pieces, and the Confederate Marines assisted when necessary.
And tell me about this cannon.
These 4 32-pound coasters were made in 1830. In 1861, they were taken down and taken to a machine shop, and they had rifling put in them, which makes them more accurate and actually boosted them to go the projectiles to go a little farther.
Well, you know what? That sounds fantastic. We are short on time, and we want to see this thing go. So I'm going to let you take it away. I'm going to step out of the way here because I don't want to be blown up. Here we go, guys. Hasn't been fired in years.
Come to the ready. Lean out. Cover your ears. Y'all cover your ears. Open your mouth. Fire in the hole. Fire.
Oh, man. That was awesome. And one of the things you told me is that was only 1.5 pounds, and when you would actually do it is like 6 pounds. So that's pretty impressive.
6 pounds.
Wow. Well, thank you guys so much for doing that. The 150th commemoration of the Battle of Mobile Bay taking place all weekend long. Come on out to Fort Gaines on Dauphin Island. You don't want to miss it. That was spectacular.
Actually going to toss it over to Joe because we've been telling you about the 150th anniversary of the Battle of Mobile Bay all morning long. And Joe is at Fort Gaines on Dauphin Island. Joe, everybody getting ready, I'm sure.
Yes, we are getting ready for the big cannon blast we've been telling you about all morning long. This is Bruce. Bruce, tell me about you and your men here.
We portray Confederate Marine Corps, and there was 40 Confederate Marines stationed here, and they did serve on the cannons part of the time. The 2nd Alabama Artillery primarily operated the larger pieces, and the Confederate Marines assisted when necessary.
And tell me about this cannon.
These 4 32-pound coasters were made in 1830. In 1861, they were taken down and taken to a machine shop, and they had rifling put in them, which makes them more accurate and actually boosted them to go the projectiles to go a little farther.
Well, you know what? That sounds fantastic. We are short on time, and we want to see this thing go. So I'm going to let you take it away. I'm going to step out of the way here because I don't want to be blown up. Here we go, guys. Hasn't been fired in years.
Come to the ready. Lean out. Cover your ears. Y'all cover your ears. Open your mouth. Fire in the hole. Fire.
Oh, man. That was awesome. And one of the things you told me is that was only 1.5 pounds, and when you would actually do it is like 6 pounds. So that's pretty impressive.
6 pounds.
Wow. Well, thank you guys so much for doing that. The 150th commemoration of the Battle of Mobile Bay taking place all weekend long. Come on out to Fort Gaines on Dauphin Island. You don't want to miss it. That was spectacular.